Hey everybody, what's going on? Hellmite here, bringing another video from Grab the Lantern today. Today I actually wanted to do a response video to something that was published over on the Escapist's YouTube channel earlier today. Now, the Escapist is a video game journalism publication. They've been doing stuff for years now. You probably know about them from their video series Zero Punctuation with Yahtzee, the funny British guy who talks really fast into a microphone. Kind of what I do, but, you know, about lots more things than just League of Legends. But either way, they did a video today called Design Delve, where they specifically, this video was specifically entitled Why League of Legends Design Feeds Toxicity. And this video has already gotten a ton of views, it's gotten a ton of interaction, it's got a ton of people in the comments saying, oh, this is why I quit playing League of Legends, or this is why I'm never playing League of Legends, because it's such a toxic game, blah blah blah. And I found myself disagreeing with a lot of the comments that the creator, I believe his name is JM8, a lot of the comments that he was making about League of Legends design. Most notably, I really don't think it's League of Legends design specifically that feeds into toxicity. There's a lot more at play, and I don't think that League of Legends is inherently a toxic game, which is the argument that JM8 is making. So in today's video, I wanted to break down his claims and talk about why I feel that they aren't entirely correct about League of Legends and its state. First, there's the argument of helplessness of forced positions. The argument here, of course, is that because League of Legends has a very rigid role structure, you have a top laner, a mid laner, a jungler, and 2 bot laners, that you are forced to be in these specific positions throughout the game, that you don't have the ability to help players on your team, so when they start falling behind, it becomes very easy to start pointing your fingers at the person who's losing you the game, because they're losing on their own and you are powerless to help them, but you can blame them regardless for your loss. Forced is a bit of an edgy way to phrase it here. I think there are literally a minimum of 2 positions in League of Legends that are designed to help allies, the jungler and the support. If you haven't seen a roaming support in your games, supports are intended to be able to leave their own lane to help other people. I think we can all think of supports leaving their lane, especially in professional play, to go help other lanes because they're not farming, they're not losing anything by leaving lane. And so I disagree with this idea then that you are stuck in your lane, that there's nothing you can do. There are 2 positions literally designed to help all of the lanes win. There is no ability that you're just stuck in your own lane, unable to help your, the rest of your team. You can always leave. And this even goes for solo lanes. Now, he makes the argument that you get punished automatically by trying to leave your lane to help, but this is something that you can manage if you know how to manage a wave. If you're able to shove a wave, you have time to then roam immediately afterwards. In fact, this is the play style for a ton of mages that Riot have released throughout the years. Champions like Talia, Aurelion Sol, even Ryze post-rework, all of these champions are sort of intended to be roaming mid laners, to shove the wave and then to go to side lanes to help. Assassins as well are champions designed to roam and help other lanes. So I don't buy this argument that you have to stay in this position and that there's no way to help anyone on your team. There's also this argument that he makes about the negative reinforcement loop of laning, which is basically the idea that if you die in lane, your opponent gets more gold and experience than you, so when they come back, they're now stronger than you, so you're more likely to die again, which sort of continues this chain until your opponent's killing you under your tower because they're significantly stronger than you. This is something that can happen in League of Legends, but usually there are just as many opportunities to turn a losing lane around as there are to lose it in the first place. Mostly this is because League of Legends is a skill-based game. Your opponent is only human and can mess up, and this is a lot to do with the champion design of League of Legends. Admittedly, some of the older champions in the game have a little bit harder ability to outplay, but most of the new champions have many ways that you can actually deal with them, whether it's skill shots, whether it's timings on certain abilities, whether it's comboing certain abilities together, or requiring mobility, or requiring the use of a summoner spell. There are a ton of different things that can go into an individual micro play that allow you to potentially not die in a particular scenario, or even to outplay them and get the kill. Now, this is also ignoring the variance in champion design. If you die early to a Renekton in top lane, you are predicted to do that, and Renekton's ability to kill you early on is built into his power level by design. There's a reason lane bullies like Renekton don't scale particularly well into the late game, and it's because they are designed to be good in lane, and they are designed with snowballing in mind. Conversely, if you're a Renekton and you die early, the lane is all but over for you. Your power budget was predicated on the fact that you would be ahead in terms of golden experience. Now that you're not, you're in a much worse space than you were before. On the flip side, as a Kayle player, you are going to lose fights early. But dying early isn't automatically a bad thing. You're a scaling pick. You're supposed to be at a disadvantage in the early stages of the game. You're not going to be strong until later. So again, it's sort of a cushion. Dying once in lane as a Kayle isn't as big of a deal, versus dying once in lane as a Renekton is a huge deal. This is also negating or ignoring the fact that early levels are exceptionally volatile. Usually post 6, most players understand their role in lane and whether or not they're ahead or behind, and therefore can play accordingly and sort of understand how things are going to go. And this also then means that early levels can be extremely swingy. You can die at level 1 to a champion that you really shouldn't have died to because it's level 1, everyone's only got one ability, you made one mistake, cancelled one auto attack, stepped forward a little bit too early, and now you're dead. But once you hit level 6 and you have access to your full kit, you're able to actually come back into the lane and maybe even kill your opponent. There are a lot of things that go into whether or not a lane immediately becomes the sort of snowball fest that JM8 claims, and I think that as a result, it's not automatically going to turn into this snowball of a game where there's no possible way for you to come back. This is something that can happen. I'm not going to gloss over the fact that it can happen in League of Legends, but I think that there are so many steps to get to a point where you're dying under your tower, unable to do anything about it, that it functionally renders the argument moot. He also goes off on this tangent about a necessity for a leader. I don't think this is required, actually. In casual ranked games, it's very rare that a team has a singular shot caller making every decision for everybody. Most communication, at least that I've seen, is almost sort of done by vote, right? Players will just ping objectives or timers, and everyone just kind of figures out if they want to do that or not, right? You might ping Drake and say, hey, I want to do Drake, and your bot laner might ping his gold and say, as a way of saying, I need to recall, right? Or someone pings back Drake and says, no, 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 we don't want to do that right now. And sort of the rest of the team, you just get a sense for where the team is at, and then don't go to that objective, or do go to that objective. Sometimes there is conflict in terms of the shot calling. Someone might fervently be pinging Baron, while someone else might be fervently pinging the enemy mid-inhib tower, and sometimes there can be a split in terms of team, but most players, at least at this point, usually understand that it's better to be with a team than without, and if most of the team is heading in one direction, it's better to be with them than it is to be with somebody else. I also, he raises this argument as a way of saying chat is a requirement, and once you bring chat into the equation, things automatically have a chance to be toxic, because if someone says do Baron and someone else in your team says no F you, right, that leads to toxic behaviors. But I don't agree even that League of Legends is the worst game around for that. FPS games like Counter-Strike or Overwatch, which is an example he uses in his video, are almost worse, because these games almost require the use of voice chat, because you're in a first-person perspective. Your perspective is way more limited than it is in League of Legends, and as a result, you need the comms from your team in order to know what's going on in the rest of the game, and being flamed in voice chat is infinitely worse than being flamed in chat as far as I'm concerned. The most toxic experience I've ever had as a player was in Overwatch, where I got verbally abused over voice chat. It was never in League of Legends, where the only thing that can happen is text chat flame. This is also something that happens in literally every multiplayer online competitive game out there. It doesn't sort of matter what game you're talking about. MOBAs do it, but so do FPS games, so do MMOs, so does, I mean, literally any game genre out there. If it is competitive online multiplayer game, you are going to have some degree of toxicity. And that's just sort of I don't want to say a human thing, because I think we humans are better than that, but it's sort of a cultural thing that's been in games for a long period of time. And honestly, it used to be way worse back in the day, where people would be flinging around four-letter words, racial slurs, all sorts of terrible remarks. Nowadays, it's actually much better than it used to be in some games. Some games have not moved past that, if you have ever been in a Call of Duty voice chat lobby. But fundamentally, though, you sort of get my point. There is so much of this just inherent in games in general that any degree of communication, if it is in a game, will be used for abuse. It's just something that you have to adapt for and sort of understand is going to happen in any competitive online game that you play, and it's not a specific thing to League of Legends or any MOBA. This is also an explanation for his argument that the anonymous culture of League of Legends facilitates this. Yes, it does, but it's no worse than any other multiplayer online game, especially those that are free-to-play, where if you get banned, the only thing you're going to do is create a new email account, create a new free-to-play account, and you're right back to abusing players in bronze. Right, that's something that every game sort of allows you to do. There are some exceptions. Overwatch, for example, you do have to pay $40 for an entire another copy of Overwatch and create a new Blizzard account, but fundamentally, it's still possible to do. If you are dead set on playing that game again and being toxic, Blizzard can't stop you physically from doing that again, right? There's just no getting around it as far as online multiplayer games have. The fairest argument he makes is the difficulty curve of MOBAs, and this is a criticism that I even talk about all the time. League of Legends is an exceptionally hard game to learn how to play, but it's also something that Riot can't really ever remove or design out of the game. The guy makes an argument that the tutorial is crap, and indeed, it is kind of crap. It doesn't do anything except teach you how to physically click your mouse and press your buttons to do things, but it's because so much of League of Legends is sort of a knowledge base, right? There's the entirety of the metagame knowledge, which champions play in which lane, what items they buy, what runes they take, when to do dragon, when to do baron, right? This is all metagame knowledge, and it changes over the years. Even if Riot published an article tomorrow that said, here's exactly every champion's position, every build path they can go, here's the optimal times to do dragon, the optimal times to do baron, right? They could write a whole long article about it, and it would be invalidated by the time of the next patch. Things change constantly in this game, and there's no real way to tutorialize it to new players. You can tell a new player right now Ashe is a bot laner, but who knows, in 2 years, maybe she'll be a support. Oh wait, that happened. And as a result, there's just no way for Riot to actually ever create a tutorial that teaches you everything you need to know about the game. And to be fair to Riot, I think that they've done a very good job of adding in mechanics and things to the game that help teach you the game. Things like the rune recommender, or the item recommendations, or the first path jungle route, right, where it flags each individual camp and tells you do this one first, then this one, then this one. They've done a lot to help teach this metagame knowledge and bake it into the game, but fundamentally there's still so much knowledge that a player is going to have to know that you don't get into a MOBA game without realizing there is some degree of homework you're going to have to do. And as a result, I'm willing to concede that point to him, but I don't think that necessarily makes the game more toxic. If anything, I think it just makes it the kind of game that you know you have to commit to. Similar to an MMO, where you know once you pay that $30 World of Warcraft subscription fee that you are in this game for the long haul, or at least for the next month. In a similar fashion, usually you're not going to pick up a MOBA and just assume you're going to be immediately good at it. You know there's a degree of research and work that's going to go into learning it, and, you know, maybe that makes the game harder to learn, but I don't think it makes the game more toxic at the end of the day. He does talk about how the new player experience can be pretty bad, but honestly, this is only a problem if you are either bringing a new player into a game with you on your main, which has, you know, hundreds if not thousands of hours in the game, at which point, yeah, your new player is going to have a bad time while they get smashed by people at your rank, or if your new player ends up playing against a lot of Smurfs. Riot's done a very good job of ironing out Smurfs from the game overall, and in general, I think that if you're playing on your own as a brand new player, you're going to be matched up against players of your skill level, and you're all learning the game at the same time and probably at the same rate. And as a result, because of these arguments, there's one thing I think that he remotely gets right. Everything else I think mostly applies to competitive multiplayer online video games as a whole, and not specifically League of Legends. But then he even follows, or ends the video with the statement, the genre will forever be toxic. And he doesn't even ask the community for comments about why MOBAs aren't toxic. He just says, how are MOBAs more toxic? Let me know your comments. And I fully refute this point. When I've done things like play in houses with friends of mine, there is zero toxicity whatsoever. You cannot find a single person in that lobby who is being toxic at all, because we're friends, we're having a fun time, we're just playing the game and enjoying ourselves. And as a result, therefore, this idea that it's the MOBA design, the fiendish MOBA design that is making you toxic, is not correct, in my personal opinion. I do not buy the idea that MOBAs, as a rule, are going to make you a more toxic person. I think that they may exacerbate some toxic aspects of a person, but I think every video game in existence can do this. Play Call of Duty for long enough, and you will probably find yourself being just as toxic as if you played League of Legends for an equivalent period of time. So I don't buy this argument from JM8 that MOBAs inherently make people toxic, or that their designs are inherently toxic. I think that they have some design things that are worse than others, but every game has this. And as a result, I don't think that it's fair to say that League of Legends is somehow this bastion of toxicity. Also, as a side note, I really dislike the fact that the video is called Why League of Legends Design Causes Toxicity, and all the footage is from League of Legends, but then he talks very generally about MOBAs. It felt like he was almost too afraid to talk about League specifically. I'm willing to say that this is maybe a publisher thing, that the Escapist itself, like, received the video from him and titled it and made all the footage, and he had no say in that, but Either way, it was a very weird decision to say the least. But you guys love to let me know what you think of this idea that League of Legends inherently makes players toxic or is inherently toxic by design down in the comments. Do you think that League of Legends inherently makes players toxic? Or, like me, do you feel like League of Legends is no more toxic than any other competitive multiplayer online video game out there? Let me know down in the comment section below what you guys think. If you enjoyed the video today, go ahead and leave it a like. And if you really enjoyed the video, consider subscribing. I upload a video every Monday, Friday, and on patch days as well. Once again, thank you guys so very much for watching. I do appreciate it. And I'll talk to you all later.